so welcome to the program. It's our first edition for 2014, and as usual, we'll be talking about the Cyprus issue. So perhaps the best point would be to start off from an evaluation of the past year. For the past few months, we've been having these discussions, the exchange of papers between the two sides regarding the joint statement. We had the elections in February in the south, and we had the new Greek Cypriot leader, Mr. Nikos Anastasiadis. And of course, the talks were supposed to start right after his election, but they didn't. We had the summer break, and then we had this discussion on the joint statement. So I think it would be best if we started with a general evaluation of 2013.
Well, I think you've already summarized most of the important events in 2013. But let's refresh our memories. The negotiations in Cyprus actually stopped in the spring of 2012, if you remember. I think the last time that the two leaders negotiated was one of these Green Tree summits, which I think was in March. And in May 2012, Mr. Christofias announced that he's not going to run for president because he doesn't see any hope that the Cyprus problem will be resolved. And since then, we did not have any negotiations going on. That means that pretty much it's been 2 years that we don't have negotiations. It's a time basically wasted. But Cyprus is probably the best example of wasted time, because if you just look at the previous negotiation rounds, there were some years, for example, between 2004 and 2007, basically 3 years there was no negotiation. So we are actually having something similar to that. It's a pity, though.
Is it a bit different in the sense that there is at least some form of contacts between the two sides? Because if I remember, during that period, there was actually no contact at all.
Almost no contact on the leaders' level. Here we have some social style sort of contacts between the leadership, but it's a pity that we did not have any substantive and meaningful negotiations. It was sort of a preparation, a prelude to negotiations, but unfortunately, as you are aware of it, in the last maybe 3 or something months, the two leaders even failed to reach a agreement on a one-page joint declaration. So in a way, it's a pity that a very valuable time that could have been spent on actually redesigning the Cyprus peace process is wasted.
It's a very important point you made about redesigning the peace process, because, as you know, the negotiations have been going on for more than 30 years now. And
to be precise, 45 years.
45 years.
The year I was born.
The year so now we know about your age.
Right.
But basically, and you know, we've been hearing about this from the two sides, that, you know, basically there's nothing left to negotiate. We have negotiated everything. And despite the fact that this is true, whenever we have a new negotiations process, we talk about determining a new method, a new methodology. And now you talk about redesigning the negotiations process. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. This is an idea that myself I've been trying to develop in the last almost 2 years, since the time that the negotiation stopped, actually. You're right that many aspects, maybe all aspects of Cyprus problem have been discussed so far. Fine. But there is something missing. There's more than one thing missing, actually. Because so far, the negotiations, as we know them, the intercommunal negotiations, they have been taking place behind closed doors in the buffer zone, without involving the common people on the ground, without preparing the common people on the ground. So what I'm saying is that the sociology of the Cyprus problem, as it applies to preparing the people for a federal solution, is missing in this ingredient. What I'm saying is that negotiations between the two leaders is absolutely a must, but it's not enough. It needs to be
expanded, perhaps?
It's not just expanded. It needs to be fortified, supported, completed by other means. What I have in mind, this thing that I've developed, is that we should not look at this as just peace negotiations, but we should look at this as the peace process. part of this peace process is the official leaders level negotiations. But that's only one aspect.
A discussion of the substantive issues.
Exactly. What I have in mind is that the peace process I have in mind is based on three pillars or three columns. One column is this leaders level negotiations. Now we need to focus here on the deadlocked issues, the issues that the two sides have not reached any convergences so far. We know these issues, like the executive body in governance and power sharing, for example. What type of system it's going to, whether it's going to be a presidential system or a Swiss model or whatever.
Parliamentary system.
That's a deadlocked issue, whether there'll be cross-voting and da-da-da-da. The other deadlocked issue is property. We know that the property will be sold by three mechanisms: restitution, exchange, and compensation. But who is going to be compensated, who is going to be restituted, and all that is the sticking issue. It's also a deadlocked issue that the two sides need to solve. Obviously, the territorial adjustment is another one.
Yes.
The guarantorship is another one. So what I propose is that the leaders should focus on these issues that they have not agreed upon so far, that they don't have any convergences so far in the new method of negotiations. Then what I propose is that the peace process, the negotiations should be as technical as possible. So the two leaders should invite experts, both Cypriots as well as from outside, to generate alternative solutions to these deadlocked issues on property, territorial adjustment, or governance and power sharing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but does the UN not do that already?
Well, the UN's role is mission of good offices. So they don't have the mandate to put in front of the table alternative solutions.
But we do know that experts are working in the background.
Well, yes, but they just suggest. What I'm saying is that we should appoint, the leaders should appoint technical people, and the leaders should be kept away as much as possible from these negotiations. Technical issues need to be discussed by technical people, not politicized people, so that they can feel free to generate novel,
more constructive ideas.
Exactly, exactly. And you know, at the beginning in 2008, when the working groups were established, it was basically good because there were a lot of people in these technical groups, technical people, who were acting freely in a way, not feeling politically restricted, and generating ideas. And they have actually contributed a lot in reaching a lot of convergences. Now, the more we technicalize the process of the negotiations, the less politicized it becomes. And the leaders should be also involved, but less frequently. The leaders should be there to decide on whenever their political decisions are needed. So the experts will generate solution models to these deadlocked issues, and it is then that the leaders should be involved in deciding, okay, this is good or this is bad. And the process should not be conducted on each subject separately, on each dossiers of the Cyprus problem separately, because there are limits. We have already reached those limits. What I have in mind is that all substantive issues should be on the table, and that the two sides should engage in a give and take process. So for example, the Greek Cypriot side should know what they are going to get as piece of territory before they are going to make concessions on governance and power sharing, for example. This has not been done so far. All right? So this is one aspect of the peace process.
But one of the arguments that's made, is, particularly by the Turkish side, and this issue came up when, right after the election of Mr. Anastasiadis, who said that they were interested in starting the negotiations with a chapter on territory. And what the Turkish Cypriot side argued was that if we do start discussing about which areas we will be giving, this will generate some form of political chaos, and it might bring negative tendencies.
I respect that opinion, but I have been challenging that opinion personally since 2010. I think that
some areas would economically come to a standstill.
Well, maybe. And what is the situation today? Don't we know that if there will be a solution, part of, for example, Morpho would be maybe within this territorial adjustment? I mean, why do we postpone this? In order for the negotiations to move forward and fast, we need to have all the issues open, and each side should know what it's going to get in return for the concessions. So that's one part of the redesigning of the peace process in general. The second part, definitely we need meaningful, substantive, confidence-building measures implemented in parallel to the official negotiations. This is the missing link. The missing link is that the two Cypriot communities, Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, average people on the street, are not part of the negotiations, are not part of the peace process. They need to be they need to be brought into this so that they will be also prepared for a referendum and the day after. Because whether we like it or not, there is in principle an agreement reached that whatever text the two leaders might agree upon, it's going to be put to simultaneous separate referenda. So, first of all, the first hurdle, we need the two communities to say yes. In order to do that, we need them to be prepared for a referendum. And what is more important, they need to be also prepared for the day after, meaning that these people should be ready to live in a federal solution which is completely different from what they have been living in, the political system that they have been living in the last few decades.
You talked about confidence-building measures.
Right.
Just for the sake of a brain exercise, of brainstorming, concrete steps, what could these
I have
CBMs
very concrete
include?
CBMs that I have been thinking about. One is opening up of the fenced area of Varosha for the two sides under the UN administration, similar to 1993 confidence-building measures proposed by the UN. The other one is having some sort of direct flights for Turkish Cypriots. This could be done via Ercan, or you can call this Nicosia Airport Terminal B. I don't know, but the sky is the limit. There are novelties that we can try. The other one is opening the port of Famagusta to direct trade between Turkish Cypriots and European Union. Maybe the EU can supervise this, but it will be under the effective control of Turkish Cypriots. Another one is Turkey opening its ports to the vessels of Greek Cypriots. Mm-hmm. And maybe another one is Turkey withdrawing a symbolic number of troops, maybe 5,000 or 10,000, just signaling a gesture saying that the new relationship here is different. It's not going to be like this Cold War, security-oriented relationship, but we want a unified Cyprus. And in a unified Cyprus, we don't keep our ports closed. And as a goodwill gesture, the Greek Cypriots should lift their vetoes on the accession chapters of Turkey's EU negotiation. So all these are concrete steps. But Yurdakul, the sky is the limit.
You said it's the limit.
You can have the revision of the textbooks. You can have, I don't know, things like building a solar power plant in the buffer zone for generating energy to be used by two sides. And of course. So there are lots of things that could have been done. What is pity that I've just said at the very beginning, that this 2 years' time, since 2012, when the negotiations stopped, nothing got done in the name of confidence-building measures. This was a useful time.
Which brings us to the question, do you think that there is an intention and the political will on both sides of the divide for a solution, politically speaking? Of course, there are certain percentages in both populations which are opposed to a solution, and again, same number of people who may be in support of a solution. But politically, do you actually believe that the leadership on both sides of the divide have the political will for a solution?
Unfortunately, no. I think that currently the real problem that we have been experiencing in Cyprus is the lack of leadership, the lack of correct leadership on both sides of the UN divide. For one, we have Mr. Erol as the Turkish Cypriot leader, whose track record is known that he's coming from the no camp. He comes from the two-state solution camp. Although he's saying that I'm ready for negotiations and I'm ready to start where we left off, but he's not really pursuing a proactive, pro-federation solution.
You have to admit that he's been quite successful in terms that, you know, he's swayed away all criticisms, previous criticisms against the Turkish side in regard. I mean,
the rhetoric is there. The rhetoric is there. But on the Greek Cypriot side, we have somebody who actually supported the UN plan about almost 10 years ago, but who is faced with a 70+% block of Greek Cypriots who are still there, meaning who are still very adamant on accepting a federal solution based on power sharing, as well as he has to live with a coalition partner in the government who are coming from this traditional Ohi sayers, no camp as well. So he has to appease them too, as well as he's facing a very important economic crisis. And he doesn't trust the Turkish Cypriot leadership. He doesn't, in that sense, he doesn't trust Mr. Eroğlu as his interlocutor that can take Cyprus together to a federal solution. So in that sense, he doesn't want to enter into this, what I call the tunnel, this negotiation process, where the end is not clear whether it's going to be a bizonal, bicommunal federation, whether...
In other words, embarking on an adventure.
Right. So, Mr. Anastasiadis tries the back door. He tries to negotiate directly with Turkey, which is also a danger for Turkish Cypriots because they can be marginalized and isolated from this peace process. Unfortunately, of course, for now, for Mr. Anastasiadis, that Turkey is not in best of its condition nowadays. The Turkish government is quite busy for its own political turmoil inside. So I don't know whether he's finding the correct interlocutors in Turkey. But the other day I read from the newspaper, where Anastasiadis said that he had a chance to talk to Egemen Baş, who's not a minister anymore, but even Mr. Davutoğlu in an international platforms. So he does have now some sort of contact in different platforms. So my worry is that...
Did his predecessor have that confidence with the previous Turkish Cypriot leader, with Mr. Talat, when Mr. Christofias and Mr. Talat? Do you think that they shared that? Because there's been a lot of criticism, I mean, against those two as well, these two leaders, in the sense that they were supposed to come from the same political ideology, from the same political background, and they both were supposedly very much in favor of a solution to Cyprus' problem. Yet, when we look at the process in the past, we see that there has been very little...
At least, Yurdakul, I think that they shared a common vision, but that's not enough. I've been saying this quite a long time. I've been saying that peace is made by brave people, not by cowards. I don't want to use this word, of course, that much, but
quite a strong expression.
Yeah, but you need courage. You need true leadership. You need to take risks, and you need to lead people. You shouldn't be behind your people. As a leader, you should be the one. I don't want to use the word shepherding, but you need to be the one who would lead them to the common vision. Unfortunately, in that sense, Mr. Christofias lacked that courage to take the extra mile. Because I know that during Talat and Christofias, they have reached quite a number of on quite a number of issues a lot of convergences.
Which surprisingly Mr. Erol accepts.
Exactly, exactly. But I think Mr. Erol fell into the trap that Mr. Anastasiadis sort of prepared. Mr. Erol should have said that the joint declarations of May 23rd and 1st of July 2008, the two joint declarations by Talat and Christofias were enough. But he fell into the trap where Anastasiadis started hitting Mr. Erol's underbelly, which is this
single sovereignty
issue. It is there that the two leaders got stuck, basically. And I don't know what the practical way to move forward. If they come up with a shorter text, then it will be a bit humiliating in a way. But in any case, I don't want to get into that. But let me finish my third pillar in this greater new design of peace process. So the first pillar is the official negotiations. The second pillar is the confidence building measures. And the third pillar is the regional aspect, where the newly discovered hydrocarbons can be used to pay the cost of Cyprus problem. But here,
there's been an argument that it would not be a game changer because
it is a game changer.
They've not been able to find enough amounts of natural gas in the area.
Well, look,
and of course, there's always a discussion about how to transport
maybe
this gas
not
in the most feasible way.
Maybe currently the amount of gas discovered, guaranteed discoveries, were not enough to build, for example, a LNG plant, liquefied natural gas plant. But the regional aspect is precisely here to provide alternatives. What I'm talking about here is that a more regional dialogue that would include Turkey, Greece, Turkey Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, as well as the Israelis at the very beginning, and hopefully the Lebanese, and hopefully the Syrians when Syria
if it ever does,
will have a
back to normal.
So when you have the natural resources of these countries, which are adjacent to one another, when you combine them and then you think about methods of shipping them together to outside markets, then it's a lucrative business. When you combine the Cypriot, the Israeli, and the Lebanese gas, for example, you can ship it via Turkey through a pipeline. Of course, shipping Cypriot gas only via a pipeline through Turkey is not feasible for the political.
It's not profitable enough.
It's not profitable enough, but at the same time, the Greek Cypriots are saying that, look, we don't want to depend on Turkey, especially if Turkey is sitting in front of the tap and they can close the tap anytime they want. But what I'm saying is, let's put the Israeli, the Lebanese, and the Cypriot gas into the same pipeline. Then it's not going to be just the Cypriot gas.
In other words, creating more interdependence.
Of course, that plus diversifying the routes. Then maybe the Israelis, if the Cyprus problem is resolved, for their own security reasons, that they don't want to build an LNG plant close to Israel, they might like the idea of building an LNG plant near Cyprus, near Vasiliko, and then the Israelis can ship part of their gas, one with a pipeline through to Turkey, and the second one, diversified one, a pipeline towards Cyprus, where that gas will be liquefied and then shipped from Cyprus on. So there are alternatives that the Cypriots should also see. And the regional aspect provides exactly that.
Coming back to the issue of the joint statement, I know you said you really didn't want to go into detail about it, but it's very interesting because, as you said, in the very beginning, Mr. Anastasiadis insisted on a new joint statement. He was basically interested in changing the basis of the talks. The Turkish side welcomed this in the sense they agreed on it. And of course, ever since there's been no agreement on this, and Mr. Downer. He was supposed to come to Cyprus before he headed off to New York to brief the UN Security Council, and his postponement has sparked speculative discussions and debates. I'm not going to go into that because
me neither.
I don't really believe in,
right.
in reading too much into it. But in a sense, now there is a discussion of a shorter statement emerging. Now, this raises a question. Was the previous agreement sufficient, the ones agreed upon between the former Turkish Cypriot leader, Mr. Mehmet Ali Talat, and the former Greek Cypriot leader, Mr. Dimitris Christofias? Was it enough, and if not, how so?
Well, I think they were enough to start the negotiations. I think precious time has been wasted on the substantive issues of the Cyprus problem and more sort of academic discussions on whether sovereignty emerges from this or from that.
The chicken or the egg story.
Exactly. Whereas they fail to focus on what will be the modality of the negotiations. Nobody's talking about it. I mean, even if you agreed upon that, okay, our vision is to reach a solution which will be a federation, it will be a bizonal with regard to territorial aspects, it will be bicommunal with regard to constitutional aspect, there will be two constituent states of equal status, and there will be one single citizenship and sovereignty. Fine, okay, yeah. But how do you reach that? What method are you going to follow to reach that? As far as I know, on the joint statement that they have been working on, nothing is discussed on this, meaning that when and how the negotiations will take place and what will be the basis of negotiations, whether the convergences are still there or not. To me, these are more important than agreed upon, already agreed principles, which were by and large signed by the two sides many years ago.
Interesting. Mr. Anastasiadis has even, he's been criticized by his own domestic political front. We have statements by Mr. Andros Kyprianou, who said that, you know, we had warned Mr. Anastasiadis for not trying to, he shouldn't have tried to change the basis of the talks, and this would have led to our portrayal as intransigent, and he unfortunately said that this has come true. But of course, like you said, I think the important issue is to sit down sincerely and to try to agree on the modalities.
Exactly, the modalities of how the negotiations will be conducted, whether there will be a timeline, what issues we are going to start with, whether the convergences are there or not. These should be the topics of discussion. And why not, maybe on a parallel way, why not discussing CBMs? It's been 2 years wasted. What would be, what's wrong with not discussing CBMs? That would be preparing people and giving them hope, because currently, based on the results of the public opinion polls that we have been conducting on both sides of the UN divide, myself and my team members from SEED and Cyprus 2015 team, it's very clear that Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, when we ask them, do you have any hope that the Cyprus problem will be resolved with a comprehensive solution? They said, majority say no. They don't have any hope left. So, I mean, we need these confidence building measures that would make another spark, that would ignite the hopes of common people, so that they have they get prepared for a solution, as well as their belief will also exert more pressure on the two leaders to sit down for the negotiations.
Well, I think we're running out of time, but from a closing note, we've evaluated the past year and the past negotiation processes, but this is our first program for 2014. On a closing note, could we have your views about this year? What do you expect regarding the Cyprus problem? What should be done? What steps should be taken? And of course, we have the situation in Turkey. How will all these impact the negotiations process?
Look, maybe I should say what I'm going to say at the beginning, that I'm not very optimistic, and it gives me pain to say this as a Turkish Cypriot who wants to see this country getting rid of the Cyprus problem. The developments in Turkey is clearly telling us that the Turkish decision makers do not have Cyprus as top of their agenda, that they are busy with other issues. So this tells us that at least Turkey is not going to pursue a proactive stance with regard to Cyprus problem.
At least until the political turmoil dies down.
Exactly. And then Turkey is also entering into the election season until middle of next year. We have three elections, the local one in March, and then we have the presidential one in the summer, and then general elections in 2015. The things as they go in Cyprus do not give me much hope to expect the two leaders to start meaningful negotiations. But the international community, as you know, the UN might exert some pressure on the two sides to start the negotiations, and they might start the negotiations, but again, I'm sorry to say that, but starting the negotiations for the sake of starting them is not really meaningful. That's why I've been saying that the UN should take the lead to redesign the peace process with adding the missing ingredients in it, like the CBMs and the discussion on the hydrocarbons in a regional dimension. Maybe what needs to be done in 2014 is maybe the Turkish Cypriot side should also appoint altogether, all the parties together with the president, a negotiator, because currently we don't have a negotiator who is the sort of interlocutor of the Greek Cypriot negotiator, because as you know, in the Greek Cypriot side, you have Mr. Andreas Mavroyiannis.
We have Mr. Ertuğ, the special
representative. But he's the spokesperson of the president.
He's also the special representative, though.
Exactly, but he doesn't have the endorsement of all the political parties. So maybe he himself could be appointed as the negotiator, but he has to get the blessings of all the political parties, similar to in Greek Cypriot side, where you have Mr. Andreas Mavroyiannis, got the consensus of the National Council. And this person should be the coordinator of this negotiations that should have the technical nature. What I've proposed about 10 minutes ago, keeping the two leaders away as much as possible from the details of the Cyprus problem, so that they don't need to make politicized statements and blaming the other. So the negotiations should be under a negotiator on both sides, should be started on a technical level, all right? And then whenever you need political decisions, the leaders should be invited in to make the final decisions on all the issues that needs to be open on the table as a give and take among the dossiers.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ahmet Sözen, for this wonderful discussion we had today on the Cyprus negotiation process.
Much.
And we hope to see you again on our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.